When I dip into my mind, I see the memories hiding there.
Это было когда-то очень давно, я это помню.
Время отодвинуло, конечно.
Беспроблемное существование было около 15 лет.
Это была очень интересная история и для нашей Беларуси, и для того огромного государства Советский Союз, который тогда был.
In the 1950s, the curtain separates the Soviet Union from the outer world. The complete lack of new music and information about it. It all started in the time called the Fall. In 1957, Moscow hosted the Festival of Youth and Students, which brought together foreigners from all over the world. Foreign students played music and dances non-seen for the USSR. After the festival, the curtain lifted a bit. Soviet youth made attempt to drag a twist and shake onto the stage to play new music, but they faced with rejection of the young communist leaders.
Помни, тот, кто танцует твист, тот тунеядец и империалист.
The main musical medium until the 70s was recordings on ribs. A record player was installed on illegal recording studios. A recorder, the cutter of which picked up some vibrations, cut a sound track in the X-ray. Sometimes the westernized films reached the USSR. After the Second World War, all American films captured in Germany went on rental in the USSR. Not to pay for a license, they were only like a trophy. One of them, Sun Valley Serenade. The time was pushed back those days, but I remember everything. When I watched this film, I realised that there was other music in the world. By the mid-60s, the Beatles' music leaked to the Soviet space. The Beatles appeared an example of imitation for us, but there were no other authorities to follow. The Beatles had everything: a clear rhythm, the beauty of the melody, happy and open voices.
Кажется, что это уже совсем сейчас
It
другая
was
жизнь,
long,
конечно.
long,
Это
long
было
ago, in another
в
century,
прошлом веке,
another
прошлом
millennium,
тысячелетии, в
another
прошлом
country,
государстве.
another world.
Много мне приходилось играть на слух.
I had to play a lot by ear, trying to remember the tune from the first time, because there was no notes of music that we wanted to play. All this was forbidden. Very few records of westernized music were released by the Soviet record company Melodia. But real branded discs could be obtained only on the black market and sometimes for a very big money. The discs reached the Soviet Union by forbidden way. The musicians who went on tour, scientists who went to international conferences, sailors of merchant fleets brought them at the risk of losing them at customs and getting a rejection to travel abroad in future. Foreign students who studied in the USSR were asked to bring their discs of westernized singers. When the first Soviet tape recorder appeared, it was like a window into the world. Soviet musicians felt the right to freedom of expression. They wanted to speak, but new music was not born here. So there was no rock music in this country. That's why Soviet musicians were sure that these songs can only be sung in English or at least another foreign language.
Это было когда-то очень
It
давно,
happened
я
a
это
long,
помню.
long time ago, and I remembered it. In the last grades of the school, we were informed that the group minstrels, we even had a beat club in one of the cellars of our house. We rehearsed there on our first guitars, which were made by ourselves. We called them boards. We carved them out of wood, then polished them. At night, we sneaked through and Voice of America and other radio stations to listen to forbidden music.
Программу на волнах Голоса Америки.
But there was still little information.
Говорит Радио Свобода.
Westernized radio stations in the USSR were jammed out, but with the help of such devices, it was possible to catch westernized radio stations bypassing the jams. Soviet culture developed, at least tried to do it. In isolation from the world, they copied the groups they could hear from the forbidden radio stations, all the musicians that came on tour to the USSR. All kinds of rock groups were considered as imperialistic and intelligence agents, trying to ruin the USSR from the inside. Later, when it became obvious that the folk choirs were not the kind of music that young people listened to, it was decided to allow the Soviet rock bands to say, let's listen to ours better than bourgeois, or else it's not clear what they are singing about. So the Soviet rock groups began to appear. But the songs for them were written by Soviet poets and composers. They all had one producer, the government. They were paid the same salary, about 7 rubles for a concert, regardless of the number of spectators. Sometimes they went on tour abroad, although a special person travelled with them. His task was to collect currency after the tour, bring it to the consulate and hand them over. Almost all the money went to the government. For example, the teen program, Gergel is paid 30,000 marks for a concert. The Soviet group was paid 30. That's the difference 1,000 times. Their repertoire and even their appearance were controlled. No long hair, no bright shirts, only strong costumes.
Вот все это было запрещено.
Длинные волосы – это хиппи, это все чуждо нам. Значит, надо было носить короткие стрижки.
Мы подсознательно стремились быть узнаваемыми, а для этого нужно быть не другими. Где-то мы подстраивались, понимая, что мы живем в Беларуси, но и в Советском Союзе.
Может быть, не всем это нужно делать. Песнярам, может быть, и стоило это сделать.
Suddenly, against the background of young communist groups, unusual musicians appear. They struck like the Beatles did in their country. Very soon, their names became famous in all of USSR. ПЕСНЯРы, which means minstrels, yes, they also passed this way from being allowed to play on the stage, having the repertoire controlled. And yet they played absolutely new music. Their leader, Vladimir Muladin, got a terrific idea to use old folk tunes to look like a folk group, but to play modern music.
Из чего образовались песняры?
How was ПЕСНЯРы formed up? The great influence of the Beatles and the idea of Muladin to synthesize this style with Belarusian folk music. Was it a trick? On one hand, yes, and the musicians admitted, but on the other hand, they were so passionate and sang so sincerely. At the very beginning, they also copied the groups from the West, mostly the Beatles. But they had their own original sound. No, not the sound of their electric guitars. Their vocals. Vladimir Muladen had a unique voice, and at the beginning he sang all the solo parts himself. But he was looking for some more singers, and trusting his extraordinary intuition, he found 2 more singers with absolutely different voice timbre and got a unique sound. But Mullivan doesn't stop there. He wants to enrich the sound with new colours, and he finds the singers with more different timbres.
Заповедный напев, заповедная даль, свет хрустальной зари, свет над миром.
Valery Donati. This is his first song in the group. He has been singing it for more than 40 years, and it has become a symbol of Belarus.
Песняры заняли самый, в общем-то, золотой, можно сказать, период.
Песняры took the greatest part of my life. I was young, but already had experience of performing and arranging songs.
Как раз вот это вот время выпало на Песняры.
Серой птицы лесной из далеких веков я к тебе прилетаю, Беловежская пуща.
But unique voice is not his only gift. His arrangements painted the sound with new shades. The first song he arranged was an ancient Ukrainian folk song that he heard from an old village lady. He arranged it in a 6-part vocal harmonies with really interesting chord and progression. It sounded slightly like a contemporary version of traditional song, which contrived ornamentation, a haunting vocal beauty. And the 6-part vocal harmonies has become a distinctive feature of the group's singing.
I think arrange as much as you like. Actually, we're just playing tunes that we like, and we're not thinking about where they're from. It's almost like we've learnt all these different colours that we can add to our music, from from the places that we've been and the music that we've played and how we play the music as well, like the arrangement style. So we're using that palette of colours to make music. It's almost like learning more of a language and then making the sentences you want out of it. You take music and make it your own.
Once they even sang Because, the Beatles' distinctive three-part vocal harmonies. It is known that the recording of this song, Lennon, McCartney and Harrison sang together and overdubbed their voices twice more, giving the effect of 9 voices. ПЕСНЯРЫ sang it in 6 parts, but live. Yes, they sang the Beatles' songs and the songs of other famous groups from the West, and sometimes their own songs sounded close to the other groups, but it was very little part of their repertoire, which they enriched and developed passionately and tirelessly.
I think that it's so important to be able to preserve music in a way because it's a people's history, folk music. Like, it's how people socialised, it's the way of life. I think that the music tells a story of the time that it comes from, but it's also very much, as we were saying earlier, it's a living thing now. And it depends on if you're interested in the music for the sake of preserving it or for the sake of living it.
ПЕСНЯРЫ was the first Soviet group that went on tour to the USA. The curtain was lifted much higher. They toured the country together with the new Christian minstrels whose promoters hoped for an invitation to the Soviet Union in return. One of them, Sid Garis, said, "We'll let them see our hinterlands, which other Russian artists generally miss. They also see a controversial part of our country, and I'm hoping they'll get an understanding of our openness, and Russian government will be impressed enough to allow us to do the same in their country." But the invitation never came. In their search for new songs, Vladimir Mulalim opened for himself Robert Burns' poetry. Burns was considered a fighter for human rights, and therefore his poems were approved by the government. But nobody among the musicians knew that Burns wrote his poems on the existing Scottish folk tunes. As a result, new songs appeared. Really interesting to hear the unusual way these guys took the tune and made it work for them. It can be discussed, but some of the new songs are really beautiful, especially Here's to Thy Health, My Bonny Lass.
Прощай, красавица моя, я пью твое здоровье, надоедать не стану я тебе своей любовью. Прощай, прости, перенести сумею я разлуку, а ты смекни да разочти, кому отдашь ты руку.
It's amazing how, even 250 years later, Robert Burns' songs and poems have such a universal appeal and speak to the hearts of the people all around the world. So Soviet fans opened for themselves another Robert Burns, lyrical, tender, melancholic.
Ждать мне нет расчета. Я знаю, ждет твоя родня кого-то побогаче, она не жалует меня. Так дай вам Бог удачи.
But there was also an inner curtain in the Soviet Union. Everyone in the USSR knew a loud, sometimes rude poet of revolution, Mayakovsky. ПЕСНЯРЫ opened for the Soviet people his lyrical poetry, absolutely different from what they heard before. Another discovery was the poet from Belarus, Maxim Bogdanovich, which inspired ПЕСНЯРы to create the program Chain. Ironically, the premiere of one of the best groups programs took place in USA. After that, it was performed in Belarus only once. Since it was not approved by the new government, too many associations with the political regime, which has not changed for a long time. The 1990s, when the USSR collapsed, were difficult times. Some of the group's musicians left the country. Before going to the USA, the composer Alexander Rostropchin wrote some songs in English for the group. Here's one of them, Memories.
Remind me of another me. I'm sure that they don't care. They always hurt me so. No matter where I go, they constantly deprive me of my rest. When I dip into my mind, I see the memories hiding there. They remind me of another me. I'm sure that they don't care. They always seem so real, no matter how I feel.
Many years have passed, but the group still creates songs and gives concerts in Belarus and all the countries of the former USSR.
What does this tune say to me? What do I want it to say to an audience? Sometimes you don't really think about the audience, you're just thinking about to be in that moment. Yeah, you do get some people who just work to please an audience. They know what things they can do that an audience will love and they go with that. And other people are really channeling something like a need to create rather than a need to perform. And I think you're in a very, very privileged position if the art that you create, that thing that you have this like yearning and this longing to make, is also something that other people enjoy.
In September 2019, ПЕСНЯРы had the 50th anniversary and their music is popular today as well. The curtain fell down and these gifted musicians played their role to help it happen.
Мы можем заниматься той музыкой, которая нам нравится.
We are playing the music that we love.
Работаем в удовольствие.
It's not commercial. We are singing for our own pleasure. Singing, especially polyphonic, has the ability to charm. Neuroscience proves that singing makes us happier.
Ощущение счастья, когда ты выходишь на сцену, и когда тебя не отпускают минут 10, вот это ощущение, вот несколько мгновений счастья длится потрясающе.
I feel it when I'm on stage. The feeling that you are flying. You feel like you are in another wonderful world where everything is in harmony and you want to stay there forever.